Good morning. This is the Innovation Conversation. How are you, Tom?
Doing great, Kevin. How are you?
I'm terrific. I'm
All
great.
right.
So we're going to do a little something different today. About a week or so ago, I sent you an article. It was actually a column by Dan Shaughnessy in the Boston Globe.
Hmm.
And it was a and originally I just sent it to you because we're both baseball fanatics
And we're both old.
and we're both old. Some of us older than others.
Yes.
And it was about how older ball players, older retired ball players are basically feel that young ball players and the game itself does not respect them and the way the game was traditionally played. And which was really, really interesting. I'll just read a little piece of it here. You know, through the decades, young players sought help from the all-timers. 20-year-old Ted Williams thought he could learn from Ty Cobb and Rogers Hornsby. Carl Yastrzemski thought he could learn from Ted Williams. Jim Rice thought that he could learn from Yastrzemski. But few players are encouraged to learn from those who came before. Baseball owners and front offices have embraced new methods that discourage almost everything that was once taught. There's little use for fundamentals, taking infield practice, batting off tees, slow toss, pepper, pitchers running to strengthen legs, bunting, moving the runner over, or learning to pitch as opposed to throwing 100 miles per hour. It's all about spin rates, launch angles, and exit velocities. And Rod Carew is quoted as saying the problem with baseball today is too many strikeouts, too many pitchers trying to throw 100, pitchers throwing instead of pitching, no bunting, difficulty advancing runners from second to third, few batters changing their approach with two strikes, and a few young players tapping into the minds of older stars who used to be pretty darn good. And I recognize that there's a percentage of our audience that just said, "Who's Rod Carew?" One of the greatest hitters of all time.
Absolutely.
Um, But it's interesting though, because to me, because one could say that a lot of what baseball has done and what a lot of what baseball focuses on now is innovative, right? They're things they're able to track, things they're able to
Mhm.
gauge and measure that they couldn't measure when Ted Williams or Carl Yastrzemski or Jim Rice were playing. And so they measure those things, but it's interesting because while these things are innovative, it also does sort of ignore some of the fundamentals of the sport. And I've always thought when I've written about retail, and we've talked about this over the years, yeah, fundamentals are really, really important because if you don't have your fundamentals right, you can't build on those when you're being innovative. So I just thought it was there was an interesting business lesson in there for what these baseball players are talking about.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that article, in reading that a couple of weeks before, I heard an interview with Gary Sheffield, right? Great, one of the greatest baseball players ever. And it was the day after the home run derby. And they were asking him about the game today. And if you played today, how do you think you would do? He said, I would hit 60 home runs a year. And they said, well, how would you do that? I said, because it wouldn't matter if I struck out. Because back then, you didn't want to strike out. You wanted to get the ball in play. And yes, you'd hit the ball out, but you really wanted to get the ball in play because that's the way baseball worked back then. And he said, and then they challenged him, well, but the pitching's faster today. Like on average, the pitching's like 3 or 4 miles per hour faster. It doesn't matter. He goes, I can calibrate to that. And he goes, and also I would know that if, I'm hitting against Brandon Wu and it's a one ball and two strike count, I know where he's going to put the ball because the stats had showed me that. Right. So you could see kind of him struggling with the same thing that we saw in the article. And I was even thinking about it then. And then when you sent it and said, is there an innovation conversation here? I said, absolutely. Um, it
Well,
is.
it's
It's
interesting
like that.
because he would do what he'd always done. He would still do what he could always do, which was hit home runs, right? But he could hit more of them because he wouldn't worry about the things that would make you look like a bad ball player before.
Exactly.
And the data would allow that you were able to accumulate would allow you to do more things. So
Yes.
that's actually the right way to approach it.
And he would, right. And so, so he would, statistically, he would be better. He would be he was still valued very highly because he did the old stuff really well too, relative to others. But like he could produce better as a baseball player, at least to that metric today.
Right.
And so, you think about, but he also lamented that, the traditions of the game are being gutted, which is exactly what we read in that article. And many of his peers and and folks before him felt that way as well. And I think it is a really good lesson. Like there are so many tools available to us in business today in general, and particularly in retailing and in food retailing today, right? So many tools that enable us to be more precise, be faster, be more efficient, and that's all really good, right? That will help us execute and deliver our business better, right? But is like the baseball players say, though, in doing that, are we kind of gutting the soul
Mhm.
of what it is we are? And I do think that that's something that in retail we do need to worry about. What is our value proposition to our customer? What is our culture? Who are we? I think that you can lose a lot of that stuff when you become super AI and data driven.
Well, and when it comes to baseball, I mean, I'm one of those people. I'd much rather, and I never, I mean, people don't bunt anymore. It's really rare. And probably more than half the time when they do, they bunt badly. And yet, players go into streaks, and it always would seem to me that if you were in a slump, not streak, a slump, you'd want to be a good bunter because that would be a way to
Hmm.
sort of to just change things up and to do things differently. And it always amazes me when players don't do that. I mean, it's been interesting. I mean, we're both Mets fans. I mean, the Mets have been, listen, the Mets have had high points and low points this season, but one of the things they've been really, really good at doing is stealing bases because they put the premium on that. And it's been and using data in the right way, but still understanding that if you can get that guy from first to second, that just your odds on being able to score are much greater.
And now we know what those odds are because we have a stat to show us that. We have the data to show us that right now. And in the past, we just knew got a lot better chance to score from second than you do from first.
Well, not only do we have the data and the stat, but people can go to Vegas or go online on their phones and gamble on whether or not they're going to steal from first to second. I mean,
That's true.
it's which I think that's a different set
It
of
is, but it's part of the new experience in the
right.
sport, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like we can't just hold on to the old and say the new's terrible, right? There's a lot of elements of the new that are really cool and really entertaining, and a lot of people enjoy the sport for that, you
Oh,
know?
yeah. And listen, I was wrong. I lamented the pitch clock. And I have to say I was wrong about that. I just,
Yeah.
I think the only real rule change they've made that it still bothers me is putting a guy on second base in the 10th inning. Just
Oh,
start.
that's goofy. That's a
That
whole
doesn't
other
make any sense to me.
that's a whole other discussion. I actually we'll just touch on this quickly, but I thought the way that they settled the All-Star game was awesome.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd want them to do that. For people that didn't watch the all, they had they had a mini home run derby at the end because I think that's good for an exhibition game.
I get it. It's like penalty kicks at the end of a soccer game. Like people say that's not soccer or
Right.
football, right? I get it, but but putting a run around second is not baseball either. Like that
Agreed.
doesn't.
Agreed.
So what if we did? See if anybody wants to write in about this. We'll go back to our innovation conversation. But what if we did? All right, 10th inning. We're just going to keep playing baseball, just regular baseball. This is game 79 of 162 in the season, right? We're going to keep playing baseball for another inning. If it remains tied, then we'll do the goofy man on second thing for one inning. If it remains tied, then we do the home run derby. And then this way, you're not playing a 15 inning game or a 16 inning game in July when I know you don't like it. You're a purist, see?
It makes my soul hurt a little bit, but I don't
Or
know.
do two innings of regular baseball. But the man on second thing is goofy.
Yeah, yeah, um, yeah. I mean, here's the deal. I mean, you would like it until worked against you, and then if one of those games you lose because of the home run derby, and then you don't make the playoffs by one game,
Yeah, I
It's
get
going to
it.
seem like a really bad idea.
Yeah, I get it.
But,
But the humanity, the second thing is goofy.
uh,
But back to our
but
back
go
to our
back.
innovation conversation.
I can remember a number of years ago, there was a story, again, it was along the same lines, where Jim Rice, Boston Red Sox, he's at spring training, I think it was, and he's just hanging around the cage as people are taking batting practice. And one of the younger players came over to him to talk to him because he's Jim Rice. And somebody from management shooed him away, said, "No, we don't want you talking to our young players." And it's like, that's crazy. And I think this falls into something that retailers, I mean, all businesses for that matter, but retailers really have to think about is making sure that, creating a role for those people who can mentor young people and teach them the fine points of
100%.
customer service and the things that you're not going to pick up from a computerized training program.
I totally agree. I mean, it's the soft skills of customer service, the soft skills of almost any position in a store or in management. The fostering of the company's culture, right? You can't do that with data and technology and capabilities, right? I mean, that's although that can certainly help you, help that culture thrive in new ways, and serve customers in new ways. But how do you, it just the potential gutting of your identity, as a company and your value proposition for your customers, it's a risk.
Yeah.
And I think it's really key that we balance both, right? That we appreciate, the history and the culture and the tradition. We appreciate the soft skills that often make a difference, in your customer's day, and often make a difference in how you treat your team and how well your team performs and how valued they feel and how valuable they are. I think it's just really key to have that balance of that kind of, authenticity, in substance of the past, with kind of the accuracy and provision and precision and speed of the future, of the current and future.
Well, and I sometimes think we need to come up with a different name for soft skills, because ironically, soft skills are the hardest for other people to imitate. They're the hardest for other people to replicate. They're the hardest for other people to exceed. It's also the hardest for things like AI to be able to replace.
Absolutely.
And so soft skills always seems like they're the fluff, but in fact they're not the fluff. They are the ability to move the guy from second to third. They are the ability to
Amen.
lay down a good bunt or hit the cutoff man or whatever it happens to be.
Or observe your customers, see what's working, what's not working for your customers, understanding or experiencing and seeing their frustrations. Like that's all inputs that you can gather as a human, with intuition, and soft skills to then be able to turn and understand how to turn those things into, to improve whatever it is that's troubling the customer and better the experience for them.
Well, we always talk about, things like how the importance of institutional knowledge and why that's important. But willful institutional ignorance is a really horrible thing that can eat away at the foundations and the fundamentals of a company. And if you eat away at the fundamentals and the foundations, you no longer have the kind of stability you need to be able to innovate on top of it. And innovation has to come on top of something, right? You can't
Absolutely.
be innovate.
No, that foundation, we often talk about like data foundations and whatnot, which are super critical, right? But it is that cultural foundation, that fundamental that enables everyone to take risks with comfort that they can and that they can fail. And that's okay because the foundation is going to stay solid.
Well, listen, we were able to talk about baseball and we were able to talk about retailing. So there and technology and innovation. So we have quite literally in this case covered all the bases.
Well, it doesn't get any better than that.
Hey, listen, let's go Mets, and I will talk to you soon.
Sounds great.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Kevin. Thanks, everyone.